Alright, this module gets into the issue of troubleshooting DHCP, and this is something where it would be great to just spend hours at the computer configuring DHCP and looking at how clients get IP addresses and that kind of thing, but that's really not possible in the context of this course or really any other course or any book that you might read. Really, troubleshooting is a synthesis of your understanding of the technology added with some real-world experience. So the best way to get familiar with troubleshooting concepts and basics is to, one, thoroughly understand how DHCP works and some of the behaviors, and then two, configure a network and start using DHCP to assign IP addresses and then purposefully break that network. But with that in mind, we look at some troubleshooting scenarios. You can look through lots of books, help files, etc. that give you similar types of tables or matrices, say, if this happens, then do this. But again, really, there's no way you can kind of carry this knowledge around with you. You just have to be comfortable with the underlying technologies to understand, all right, what computer is talking to what, how should they be talking to each other, why is this not happening. So with that in mind, one of the recommendations, and this is really more of a best practice more than troubleshooting, is the use of superscopes as a recommendation instead of multiple DHCP servers on each subnet. You don't have to configure multiple servers with multiple subnets to serve multiple logical subnets. You can use superscopes instead. Another very important one, and you're almost positive, I can't tell you exactly what's going to be on the test. One, I'm not clairvoyant, and two, it would be against my non-disclosure agreement with Microsoft to say, oh, when I took it I saw this, but I'm almost sure you'll see a question on APIPA behavior. And the APIPA behavior, remember, is that you get an IP address of 169.254.something.something, and your computer can talk to other computers who have gotten APIPA addresses, but not to any other computers, especially those on remote networks, because you don't have a default gateway. When you set client options must be supported in order for the client to be configured with those options. So if you don't have client options set and you expect them to be, maybe the particular type of DHCP client does not support the options that you've set. For example, maybe a DHCP client on your network is a Macintosh client or a Unix client. Certainly those can be DHCP clients on your network as well. Those won't support, like, for example, a Wins server option. So that might be a possibility there. Or you may have just forgotten to configure the option or have incorrectly configured the option. Or you may have incorrectly set the user class or the vendor class, these kinds of things. Another one, don't install the DHCP relay agent on the same computer as the DHCP server. Remember that the DHCP relay agent serves to route traffic from the server itself, and you actually configure it from routing and remote access across to another subnet to the DHCP server. So you don't want these two services running on the same computer. What else is worth taking note of? Create reservations on all DHCP servers that might service the reservation client. If you have a reservation for a client and there's a possibility that that client get its IP address from another DHCP server, imagine a subnetted network where you have a 1542 compliant router and one of your DHCP servers is down, make sure that reservation exists on all of your DHCP servers. Remember also to authorize your DHCP servers in Active Directory. No domain clients will be able to get an IP address from the DHCP server unless that server has first been authorized in Active Directory. And here's another topic, another troubleshooting scenario where you're almost certain to see some form of a question that has to do with authorizing DHCP servers in the Active Directory database. And then finally, remember your ipconfig utility. I think all DHCP troubleshooting really starts with the ipconfig utility. And with the ipconfig utility, you can look at all configuration parameters, and on a client machine this will tell you if DHCP has been enabled or not, any class IDs that have been assigned to that particular client. So there's just a wealth of information you can gather from ipconfig, and not only can you diagnose problems with ipconfig, but probably, 60, 70, maybe even 80% of all DHCP related problems can be resolved by doing a release of the IP address and then a renew of the IP address. Because if that DHCP server is up and it is reachable, then our client asks for a new IP address, and as long as the scope's been configured with the right parameters, that should fix, again, the majority of our client's communication problems. So there's no button pushing here because we're not looking at any specific troubleshooting scenario. We just want to make sure that we present some of the ones that you may encounter and certainly some of the ones you may be tested on the 291 exam.